as far as the John Cena promo goes, we covered it through feelings on an emergency podcast. Big E and I had a fabulous conversation about it on the Raw recap, which, I mean, his insight is amazing. But now we can really analyze it. This is what the Monday podcast is all about. This is what the weekly Not Sam Wrestling podcast is all about, the analysis of it, when we can sit down and really think about it. Because leave it to John Cena to cut his first heel promo, and it's, what's that word? Polarizing. The word that has haunted John Cena his entire career. Polarizing. Because depending on where you go for your hot takes, some people thought it was great. Some people didn't like it so much. I thought it was fantastic. And I'll tell you why I liked it. I think that for John Cena, not every question was answered. John Cena as a villain. Why did John Cena choose to do this? I don't know that we got that answered. He explained, he said why, but I don't know that I believe him. You know, this idea, because when? How about the when? Meaning now you decide to turn heel. And you're telling us the why is that because all these fans take and take and take from you, that it's a toxic relationship and it has to end. Well, then the why now applies to the when, which is why now? How come after 20 years of doing this, you choose now to do this? Right? The where. WrestleMania 41 is the where. What makes WrestleMania 41 different? What he didn't talk about was selling his soul to The Rock. What he didn't talk about was the desperation that might kick in. What he didn't talk about was, why did he start this road in an honorable way and then change course? He didn't talk about any of that. Instead, we got the answer to what I think is a very important question. And what is the most important first question? Who? The John Cena first heel promo on Monday Night Raw was simply to answer who. Who is John Cena as a villain? We have known John Cena for 2 decades as the babyface of all babyfaces, and he will tell you he's not a babyface, he's not a heel, he's a human being, but that's what makes him a heel. Who is John Cena as a bad guy? And realistically, that's the conversation that we were all having before this happened, in terms of what he's going to wear, in terms of the music that's going to play, in terms of what he's going to say. All of that directly applies to the who. If we can narrow it all down to one question, we wanted to know, who is John Cena as a bad guy? And that's the answer that we got. And I thought Cody Rhodes put it succinctly. He's kind of a whiny bitch as a bad guy, right? John Cena went out on Raw, and he's speaking from this place of a guy with hurt feelings, from a crowd that he has no personal connection with. The relationship that a performer has with the audience, by definition, is a transactional relationship. I pay money for a ticket. Then I pay a little more money to put your t-shirt on. And then I sit in my seat and you perform for me because I paid. And that's our relationship. I make whatever noise I want because it's a wrestling show. It's not a Broadway play. It's not a stand-up comedy show. It's a wrestling show. So I pay my money for my ticket. I pay my money to wear whatever shirt that I want to wear. I buy a little oak tag and write a little sign. Maybe I go to the concession stand, pay my money to get some chicken tenders. I'm speaking from personal experience. Yeah, this is me specifically speaking. Grab a Dr. Pepper if they have it. If not, Pepsi works. Coke is fine too. And then I sit down and make whatever noise I want to make when you come out and you perform. I don't have to go, are his feelings hurt? I don't have to go, will it bother him if I say this? I don't have to go, I want him to be my friend. What would he want me to do? I don't have to do any of that. I should show him I appreciate just the fact that he's performing. I don't have to do that. I paid. It's a transactional relationship. And even if I'm there to support you, it's transactional. And that, at its root, seems to be the problem that John Cena has with the audience. That he has tried to build this emotional connection with the audience, when in reality, the audience is treating it as a transactional relationship. What makes John Cena a heel is that the audience is right. This is a transactional relationship. And John Cena is treating it as if it is a personal relationship, as if there is some umbrage, ownership. We have a duty to treat him as a human being as opposed to a performer. Well, we don't. He's not coming over to my house for dinner. He's not calling me if I feel bad. If I feel bad, he's performing. I'm going to put it on. Maybe I'll feel better. But he's not doing that just for me. He's doing that for everybody. He's performing regardless. If it makes you feel better, good. If it doesn't, good. I'm performing anyway. That's the relationship that we have. But I think it's really interesting. And I think that part of it is because people put so many expectations, of course, on the John Cena promo. There were a lot of people that wanted it to, well, what if they had just done this? What if they had just done that? I was having people hit me up going like, I don't think it worked. It's impossible to say that it didn't work. It doesn't make sense to say that it didn't work. It's okay to say you didn't like it, but to say it didn't work. What I saw was John Cena getting booed upon booed. John Cena came across like a huge bad guy. Cody Rhodes came out and came across like a huge good guy. Everybody cheering Cody Rhodes. And interest in their match grew exponentially. Everybody got very excited about a good guy versus a bad guy at WrestleMania. Feels to me like as far as promos go, it's a 10 out of 10, right? What's the goal here? What's the goal? To establish the good guy, the bad guy, and to get people excited about paying to see this match. I mean, it's hard for me to say that any of that was not met. I think that there was an obnoxiousness to it that people aren't necessarily used to. I think that using all the psychiatry terms, toxic relationship, breaking up with you, all that stuff caught some people off guard. I mean, it caught a lot of people off guard because you don't really hear that in wrestling promos all that often. But I think that's the point, that we're at a place right now where I think that wrestling, and this is going to sound ridiculous, and it's hard for me to say it on a place that's not Notsam Wrestling, but we speak in the depth and detail of wrestling. And if this isn't a safe place to have the conversation, we can't have the conversation. I personally feel as though wrestling is moving in to be a more sophisticated storytelling place than it has been in the past. The way we tell stories within the context of professional wrestling is being elevated right before our eyes. That's why we are able to break the fourth wall, quote unquote, break kayfabe, and still explain to me this. If we are doing this terrible thing by quote unquote breaking kayfabe so often and saying things like heel and babyface and doing this and doing that, then why are people so interested in these stories and matches? It's because everybody knows what this is. To live in a world where we can't acknowledge the traditional kayfabe of it all is to live in a world where there's a clear delineation between real life and pro wrestling. In order to create that suspension of disbelief, that clear delineation has to be not so clear anymore. It has to be completely blurred. And there are some of us who've been watching wrestling forever that feel much more comfortable when that delineation is there. Because we know, we're the hardcores, we're the true fans. We know where the separation is. But we don't anymore, to be quite honest. And it's making some of us uncomfortable. Not me, but it's making people, there are people uncomfortable by that. The way wrestling stories are being told, I feel they're moving into a more modern place and a little bit of a more sophisticated place. The idea that like you will now have these sort of, you see these arguments and these fights and these justifications for behavior by using psychiatry terms that are not being used properly, that are not being used accurately or effectively. However, because psychiatry terms are being used, this person is coming across like they're an intellectual. I'm going to teach you what you're doing wrong because I'm using these psychiatry terms. This isn't just me being emotional. This isn't just me being irrational. And when somebody does that to you in real life, they're the heel. They're the villain. When somebody is talking down to you and explaining that your behavior towards them is wrong and starts hitting you with SAT words, they're the asshole, not you. And I think that that's what That's what John Cena was doing when he was explaining to the audience why they are the problem and he is not. And every time they booed him, it's like, you're just making my point. That's every argument you've been in with a significant other where they're just not giving you an inch. And you can't, like, they've created this logic trap where the only thing that you can do to get out of it is to just agree. And that's not a legitimate way to have any sort of debate or conversation. But that's what makes John Cena a villain. That's what makes him a heel. You know, I've been talking, but even before we established the 3 rules of Notsam wrestling, even before we established that you have to watch the product, you have to speculate wildly, and everything counts. The root of everything counts is in a bigger concept that we had, which is new kayfabe. The new kayfabe, which is this idea that some will tell you that kayfabe is dead, and kayfabe is not dead. Kayfabe is more alive now than it's ever been. Kayfabe, the art of tricking the audience into believing that something is real when it is not real, okay? Doing traditional pro wrestling, good guys versus bad guys where we never break character, is no longer kayfabe because we are all aware that these are people portraying characters. If the good guy is always the good guy, if the bad guy is always the bad guy, and they don't acknowledge the world around them, and they don't acknowledge that people know that this is a work, and they don't acknowledge the truth of what pro wrestling is, then all of a sudden, that line of delineation becomes clear. And what breaks kayfabe and what breaks the suspension of disbelief is the fact that you have to stretch yourself so far that you have to pretend that the real world doesn't exist when you enter into this world of pro wrestling. And that makes it difficult to maintain a suspension of disbelief long enough to really get wrapped up in these stories. When the idea that we are breaking the fourth wall, quote unquote, when we're really not. The idea that what we're doing is telling a story where we're going to establish John Cena as a heel, but we're going to establish him as a heel similarly to how we established The Rock as a heel. You know how we established The Rock as a heel? Rock came back as a babyface. Everybody said this guy is on the board of directors. This guy is the most powerful person in WWE behind the scenes. Trust me, I know. I read it on the internet. And he is muscling his way into the WrestleMania main event for real. And The Rock said, okay, what if The Rock on television portrays himself as somebody who's on the board of directors, has all the power in the world, and is muscling his way into the main event of WrestleMania, and that's what makes him a heel. All of a sudden, this stuff that I, the smartest wrestling fan in the world, really hated The Rock for, all of a sudden is the same thing I'm booing him for on television. That is new kayfabe. What if John Cena comes out and he just cuts a wrestling promo? I mean, I thought the most brilliant part of the promo is when he said, I'm not changing my outfit or my theme song because I'm not doing it for you. And then people with hot takes were sitting here going like, you know, that promo, it didn't do it for me, which is the whole character. It's almost like John Cena knew that you were going to sit back and go, that promo didn't do it for me. And Cena was in the ring saying that my problem with the fans is you want and you take and you go, what's for me? What's for me? What's for me? And then you go, I don't know, John Cena turning heel, it didn't do it for me. Boom. Did we just put a bow on that, or did we just put a bow on that? What if John Cena, WWE, Triple H, whoever it is, has this awareness that there's a sophistication, to go back to that word, of wrestling fans that know, okay, this is what a heel is supposed to do. This is what a John Cena heel is supposed to do. And if we don't get that from him, if we don't get that version of John Cena as a bad guy, which is what I was expecting, I'm going to be mad. And John Cena is going to keep doing this thing that is not my vision of John Cena as a heel. Because I know, I've been a wrestling fan forever. And if John Cena as a heel is not my vision of John Cena, I'm gonna get frustrated. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna boo him. I'm gonna boo him because in his promo he's being too whiny, I think. Not kayfabe. Not kayfabe. He's being too whiny. And I'm glad Cody Rhodes came out and said he was being whiny because I thought he was being too whiny too. Matter of fact, the best part of the promo was Cody Rhodes coming out. Best part of the promo was Cody Rhodes coming out. So you mean to tell me that the bad guy came out, turned into a bad guy, ran down all of the fans, and that got you upset? And then the good guy came out and called him whiny, and you agreed with the good guy and said the good guy coming out and putting the bad guy in his place was my favorite part of the promo. And then you go like this, not effective. That sounds like new kayfabe came in, swept you up, and brought you back into being a real wrestling fan, where we are booing the bad guys and cheering the good guys. And that's all we want, is to be able to go to a show and legitimately boo the bad guys and cheer the good guys. And I don't think anybody felt like cheering John Cena and booing Cody Rhodes after that promo. And I can't wait to see how the story evolves, right? Because ultimately, and people were also wondering about The Rock. And that's, by the way, a fair wonder, right? And I'm not saying anybody who says they don't like something, totally legitimate. Totally legitimate. I'm just presenting my opinion on it. You know, I don't think you're wrong for not liking anything, you know, but unless it's the tribal chief Roman Reigns. But I think that there's, of course, going to be, I mean, there's some people that still say that John Cena should be wearing a suit. Cody Rhodes wears a suit. How are you going to put the heel in a suit and go, well, we can tell he's a heel because he's wearing a suit. Here comes Cody Rhodes. Why is he wearing a suit? Oh, Cody just wears suits. Come on, guys. Let's be rational. I think that, but one thing that a lot of people are wondering, and has been a huge conversation, I think it's a legitimate conversation, is this idea that The Rock hasn't been brought up at all. Since the Royal Rumble, that whole sort of turn was The Rock saying, Cody, I want you to sell your soul. Cody said no, and he said it, you know, with a 4-letter word. And then John Cena gives The Rock a look, and the implication is that John Cena sold his soul to The Rock, and I think Travis Scott gets 10%. But since that happened, Cody has been focused on John Cena in the promos that led up to Cena's return and first promo. And in Cena's first promo, he explained how he felt. Now, look, I think that there, and we talked about this, by the way, here on this podcast. We said that it has not been made clear that The Rock is even going to be at WrestleMania. We said that this is not some kind of team necessarily. Could be, but not necessarily. There was no clarification that The Rock would even be involved. I believe here on Not Sam Wrestling, I said there is a world where The Rock just acted as a catalyst to turn John Cena. I mean, if The Rock's goal is just for Cody not to be the champion, maybe he just trusts John Cena to take the title off of him. And in reality, John Cena versus Cody Rhodes is big enough on its own to stand alone. Now, adding The Rock to it only makes it bigger. So I'm not advocating for not putting The Rock in there. But what I am saying is if we don't hear from the final boss until sometime after WrestleMania, I don't think that the John Cena Cody Rhodes match is lacking in any way, shape, or form. You know, I think that there's two ways of doing it. There is a world in which The Rock went to John Cena and said, hey, I might need your soul real quick. Is that available? And John Cena said yes. There is another way where John Cena turned because John Cena turned. Maybe John Cena didn't have to sell his soul to The Rock. Maybe something happened to John Cena when Jey Uso eliminated him from the Royal Rumble. Rock was not at the Royal Rumble. And when John Cena showed up to the press conference at the Royal Rumble and said, what's best for business is me going to WrestleMania and winning the championship at WrestleMania and winning my 17th championship at WrestleMania 41. That was the foundation for the Cena heel turn. So even without The Rock, the foundation has been laid. Maybe The Rock already knew that John Cena had no love for Cody Rhodes. Maybe The Rock already knew that John Cena was not planning on going into WrestleMania being friends with Cody Rhodes. Maybe The Rock already knew that Cody Rhodes was not going to sell his soul to him but that John Cena was more interested in getting his 17th championship this year at WrestleMania than he was anything else. And maybe The Rock knew, yeah, John Cena's not gonna let this stand. Or maybe in a week or two, The Rock's gonna show up on Raw and we find out that John Cena actually did sell his soul to The Rock. What I'm saying is both of those are in the ether. Both of those are possible, and both of those, to me, can make sense as we go to WrestleMania. And that's kind of a great place to be in. If The Rock is involved, great. If The Rock is not involved, fine. We got Cody and John Cena, and we got John Cena as a heel at WrestleMania.